Hello, I am Motoi Yamamoto, and today I would like to have an interview with John Newton, who has been my friend for a long time. I met him in Findhorn, and we have been working together. And today I'd like to ask him about his experience in Findhorn. So let's start. Hello, John. Welcome.
Hello, Motoi.
Welcome to my YouTube studio. How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. Glad to
Great.
be here.
Okay, so I would like to ask you a few questions about Findhorn. So are you ready to start?
I'm ready.
Okay. Number one question is, what brought you to Findhorn, and when was your first visit to Findhorn?
Well, I've got a few notes here that I'll glance at occasionally. Between 1975 and 1978, I was living and working in California. And I was there with my family, my wife, Claudia, and 2 children. And while we were there, Claudia went off on her own to a meeting where they were talking about, the speaker was talking about Findhorn. And she found the meeting very, very interesting. And when she came home, she talked to me about it. And we decided that what we would do when we're on our way back to Australia, which is where we come from, after I'd finished my work in California, that we would visit Findhorn. And we did that. We went to a family experience week, with our children, and we enjoyed that. But there was something, for me, there was something I couldn't put my finger on. It was really important. I knew that there was something at Findhorn that I had to return to Findhorn to find out about. And so later on, I returned on my own. I did that. I made visits then. My first visit was in 1980, but then I made over a period of, over a period of 35 years, I made visits to Findhorn, about 12 visits to Findhorn. So anyway, the person who got me to go to Findhorn was my wife, Claudia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and do you think you found something?
I found that I didn't know what it was, but I could feel in myself that it was really important that I return to Findhorn. I knew it was, at some level, I knew it was a spiritual thing, but I didn't know what it was.
Okay, let's go to number 2 questions. What was the most important event for you at Findhorn?
Well, there were my spiritual experiences, of course, but I think the basis for all of that was, and the most important thing that for me was being part of a real community. And I should explain what I mean by that. The people who come from, who make up Findhorn community, come from all over the world, from all sorts of different backgrounds. And they come together, we all come together to live a very simple, very full life. But they do it together. We're open to one another. And the things we do is we do everything together. You know, we live together, we work together, we eat together, we laugh together. We do everything together. And you don't have it, not in my experience. I never experienced that in what I call the normal community, the community that I live in outside Findhorn. It's very different. And
I think
that Findhorn calls itself a spiritual community, but it's not based upon any belief system. It's based upon spiritual experience. You come to Findhorn, you join in with this community, you open yourself to one another, and then you open yourself to something larger again. And that's when spiritual experiences come. Well, they come all the time. But it's the awareness of these spiritual experiences. Yeah. That can be that is an extraordinary life-changing event.
Okay. And number 3 questions. Tell me your spiritual experience in Findhorn. I heard you had a very special.
Again?
I heard you had a very special experience in Findhorn. So tell me about it.
My spiritual experiences?
Yes.
Well, when I first came to Findhorn in 1980, that was the start of about 30 experiences I had over the 4 years that I spent at Findhorn, usually 3 to 6 months at a time over a period of 40 years or 35 years. So I think the very
some important things.
Okay. Well, there's so many of them.
Yes. Yes.
I think the very first experience I had at Findhorn, the very first of the powerful spiritual experience I had at Findhorn was in 1980.
1990. Okay. 1980.
1980.
Yeah.
Yes, and that was when I was doing a course called The Essence of Findhorn, which was run by Peter Cady, one of the founders of Findhorn. Anyway, one day I was just sitting on my own. I was perfectly relaxed, perfectly still. I wasn't meditating. I was just very peaceful, very calm. And then I felt this light rise within me. And this light permeated my entire being. And I actually would call it, now I would call it the light of being. At a certain point, I got up and I walked round outside and I could see the people, all the people that were walking around. They all had this light of being within them, and I could see it. And I could see it in the trees. And
how did you see the light? The light around the human being? And what's the color of the light?
It was it was more whole experience than that. It wasn't just seeing light. It was
you
feeling
felt
the light. It permeated, you know. But it was also focused. Like I could see it in a particular human being, and then in another human being. And then a tree, if I looked at the trees. So it was where my attention fell that I could see this light.
Wow.
So that was one experience.
And how did it last?
Well, that lasted for about half a day, actually.
Half a day?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I knew I was in an entirely different state of seeing than normal. Then another experience in 1980 was when I experienced what I call the inner voice. I woke up one morning and I was very peaceful, very calm. I lay there and I heard this voice say to me, "Will you do as I ask?" And so I said, yes. There was nothing else to say. And then the voice proceeded to say, well, get up, make your bed first. And there were a whole series of tasks. So I made my bed, for example. And while I was making my bed, I wasn't thinking about anything else. And when I finished making my bed, then I was presented with the next task, have your breakfast. And while I was having my breakfast, I didn't think about anything else.
Okay.
Just nothing. And it was beautiful. Even these simple tasks are enjoyable, truly enjoyable. And then what happened after a period of time, the voice said, go and visit a particular friend of mine. And I did. I went off. And as I did, I met someone else. And we solved a problem that we'd been working on for a week. We solved it in 5 minutes. I went and met the friend. I got more done, cut it short, I got more done in that day than I would have got done, I think, in a normal week.
Wow. Because
I was just following what I was asked to do. My mind wasn't running things. Instead, the voice within me was asking me to follow it. And there were no wasted time. Time actually didn't exist.
You just focus on what's in front of you.
Exactly.
Yeah. And how did it last?
How did it?
Your inner voice.
How did it?
Your inner voice give you what to do?
It taught me new things. I learned during that day, I learned I had particular abilities that I didn't know I had. One was I learned that I had a capacity for healing.
Healing.
When I say a capacity for healing, there was a friend of mine, a woman, who was in she was very down. And all I did was I gave her a massage. And then I said to her, go and have a bath. And I brought some whiskey to her. And then she had a bath. And I met her later that day, and she was just completely changed. And so I found that I had this ability to help someone heal. So yes, the inner voice helped me with that.
How long did the inner voice tell you?
The inner voice was with me for that day, but I have experienced it again over the years. And right now, I am making a very strong focus in my life on listening to the inner voice.
Okay.
So, but there are other experiences, like, for example, let me see here, I've written them down. There was one experience I had was working with a particular person at a task which I didn't think we could possibly ever get done or get done in the time that we had to do it. And what happened, and I won't go into detail, but perhaps I'll go into detail about that later if you like, but time disappeared. And I worked with this one person with joy and peace in the garden. And again, I learned that time is just something that's made up by the mind to put limits on things. There was that. I did see at a certain point, I experienced seeing my own soul and the elements of it. I won't go into that. I had an experience, a teaching, if you like, where I've, in practice, discovered that judging others, making judgments of others, destroys one's capacity to work together as a team, and it destroys one's capacity to really live to the full. And that was shown to me in no uncertain terms in this experience of Findhorn. I had experiences. There was a conflict situation that I got into with some people, and as a result of that, and I can't say what the connection was, but I experienced the rising of Kundalini, and which is the rising of the life energy through the chakras.
While you were doing meditation?
Well, in a state of meditation.
Okay.
Yeah. When I got into this conflict state, I went to meditate, and then I experienced the rising of Kundalini, where the life energy rises through the chakras, from the base chakra right through all of the chakras, and then on out into way beyond. And that is an ecstatic experience. It also involved in myself, the purification of myself and the purification of Findhorn, or the environment I was in at Findhorn, that caused the conflict that started my meditation. Yeah. So I could go on with other.
No, not so long, please.
I'll say just one last thing.
Okay.
In 1991, I met this extraordinary woman.
Okay.
Yeah, which is 33, nearly 33 years ago. I met this extraordinary woman. Her name was Anna, and she has been my friend and my teacher for 32 years. And that is probably the greatest gift that Findhorn gave me, meeting with this. Although who's to say what the greatest gift is? All of the gifts were vital, necessary, but this one has gone on for 32 years, and she has helped me develop spiritually, if you like.
Okay.
And been my friend at the same time, even though we don't live anywhere near one another. She lives in the Northern Hemisphere and I live in Australia. We communicate backwards and forwards on a very regular basis. So that was an extraordinary thing too.
Okay.
Behind all of this, for me, is a spiritual creative force that I call grace. There are other names for it. Indians have another name for it. I won't go into that. That's opening up something else. But it's a feminine creative force. That is the creative force of all things. And all of these things that came to me were given to me by grace, if you like. Okay. But what was necessary in order for that to happen was that I be in this special field, this fertile field, because grace can only operate effectively within a fertile field where people are open to one another and open to grace. And that's Findhorn.
So you have experience that's special spiritual experience only at Findhorn, not in other place.
No, I have experienced it in Australia when I've been living in Australia, but I've experienced it only once or two or three times. Whereas at Findhorn, I experienced it something like 30 times.
Okay.
Over those 4 years I was there,
That's
so it was
amazing.
an entirely different thing.
All right. It's because Findhorn is a fertile land. Okay.
Fertile field.
Fertile field.
Oh yeah, and that reminds me that that when I was in the lounge room at Cluny Hill, I opened up a book that people wrote their experience and messages to other people, and everybody read the book. And in it, at the very front, there was a poem by Rumi, the poet Rumi, and this is the poem. And I think this relates very much to Findhorn. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. And as I say that, I can feel the energy running up and down my spine. And that just, in a few words, describes Findhorn. That field, that fertile field.
Yeah. All right. Can I go to next questions?
Sure.
If you have any memories about Findhorn founders, Eileen, Peter, Dorothy, please tell me. Yeah, we have three founders.
Yeah. I didn't actually. Well, I met with all of them at one stage or another, but I can give you just a memory. When I did the Essence of Findhorn program in 1980, it was run by Peter Cady, one of the original founders. And at a certain point, he discussed how when he meditated, what his wife, Eileen, another of the founders, would get messages from grace, what I call grace, from spirit, as to what was necessary to do. And Peter would implement those. But he himself, Peter, in all his meditations, never got any such messages. So his job was to implement things, to make things, to give structure to things. It was Eileen's job to get the messages. And Dorothy McLean, she was contacted spirits and the spirits of animals and plants. And we had a problem one time in the garden where I was working, where we had rabbits who were coming and eating our vegetables. And we asked her to come to help us get rid of the rabbits. She came along, we explained the problem to her, and she said, you'll have to work that one out for yourself. And she just got up and walked away. And I understood that what she was saying. Later I understood. I was a little baffled at the time, but I understood after she walked away. But what was she saying? You're here at Findhorn, you've got everything that you need in order to solve the problem for yourself. And we did set about solving the problem. we made a complete mess of it for a while. And I could go into that, but it involved, the mistake we made was we bought all of these steel traps, cages actually, where you put something in the cage that the rabbit is attracted to, and then that traps the rabbit. But of course, when we came to the point, what are we going to do with the rabbits now that we've trapped them? We didn't know what to do, so we let them go.
What did you do?
We just let them go.
Let them go. it's nothing.
Finally, we got round to the point of realising that maybe we ought to build.
Why did you eat it?
Oh no, there were people there. I think there's particularly some women.
They don't want to kill.
Who said, "You're not going to touch those rabbits. Let them go."
Okay.
Those rabbits are not going to be killed. Eventually, what we did was we built some fences to keep the rabbits out.
Okay, that's good to hear. Yeah, I was surprised while I was in Findhorn. People don't want to kill anything. So even if the bees or flies and comes into the building and flying around in the dining room, and they don't want to kill them. So they catch them using paper and cup and let them go outside. And I was very impressed by that because I was on the home care. I was in the home care, and while I was vacuuming the floor, sometimes I found the insect and I just vacuumed. So that was my habit. So I was very impressed by what people are doing, and yeah, that was just very impressive. And so I think I am the Peter type. I have never had information from God, and I was very frustrated about it. I envy other people who can get the information from God.
You shouldn't. You shouldn't envy other people because you've got a particular capacity. Like Peter had a particular capacity, and you've got a particular capacity, and you're showing that capacity right now for creating this video.
Okay.
That's very practical.
Okay. Yeah, I've never had I've never met Peter because when I came to Findhorn, Peter had already passed away. I came to Findhorn first in 2004, so he had already passed away. I only met Eileen and Dorothy. Yeah, Eileen was very, very lovely person. Okay, so let's go to the next question. Do you have any thought about why people come to Findhorn? Why people are attracted by Findhorn?
I think that some of it is obviously they read about Findhorn or so forth, but there's something else. I think that all the people who come to Findhorn, not all, not necessarily all, but most, maybe 90%, 95% of people who come to Findhorn are what I would call spiritual seekers. And somehow they are drawn to Findhorn, as I was. My wife went to a session where she listened to someone speak about Findhorn. But people are drawn to Findhorn, and they come as spiritual seekers, and they come and they join in with this extraordinary community, and they realize somewhere in themselves that is necessary, firstly, to become open to others, and then that opens them out into a far deeper experience again. So almost everybody who comes to Findhorn has this spiritual seeking capacity within them. There are people who come who aren't like that at all. They come with, a fixed belief system, and they're going to try and impose it on Findhorn. Well, Findhorn is not interested in belief systems. In the system's belief, Findhorn is based upon actual spiritual experience. Underline the word experience. It's not got to do with beliefs in whatever you want to believe. Only experience matters. And people come who have strong belief systems that they want to impose, and Findhorn welcomes them. But after a while, the people realise that nobody's listening to them, and they just disappear. So yes, the point is that the great majority of people who come to Findhorn are spiritual seekers.
Okay.
But spiritual in the sense of direct experience, not in the sense of belief in some set of words or whatever.
I have a feeling people come to Findhorn when they have something bad happen, like they lost their jobs, or they lost their family, they lost their loved ones, and when they don't know what to do, people come to Findhorn. That is my impression. A lot of people said when in life we have some time in life we don't know what to do, where to go, what to do, and at that time they think they can go to Findhorn. I mean, that is what I did. Because when I was lost in my life, I decided to come to Findhorn. So Findhorn is a kind of place to go when people have nowhere to go. So I'm sad about Findhorn's closing, because now I have nowhere to go when I'm lost in my life.
But Findhorn will always be with you, as it is with me.
Yeah. And this time, I had a contact with some of Findhorn friends. I mean, they are all over the world, and I had a contact with some of the friends, and when we started talking, and it was as if nothing happened, and time disappears, and I felt I was more than 10 years ago. So I think what I got in Findhorn was, in my case, that was my friend. I got a friend. I got friends, and that is one of the most important things in my life. So what is the most important thing in life you got in Findhorn? Was your spiritual experience?
Say that again.
What was the most important thing you got in Findhorn? Is it your spiritual experience?
I would say that it was the awareness of the force in all things. All these experiences that I had were given me, which is why I call that creative force, I call it grace. I didn't do anything. They were just given to me.
Great.
What I did was I lived at Findhorn, made myself, I didn't realize what I was doing. I was making myself open to other people and gradually making myself open to grace. Open to grace in this fertile field of Findhorn. Grace provided me with these experiences and lessons. And grace has always been with me, both before and after Findhorn. I was at Findhorn that I first became fully aware of grace. I should add, by the way, that my name is John Newton, and Newton was the name of the man who wrote the hymn called Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
Was John Newton. So there's a kind of a synchronicity there, if you
yes,
like.
Yes.
But yeah.
Okay. Can I finish the interview now? And thank you for talking with me. And I'm very grateful that we could have an interview together.
Yeah. So am I.
And if someone wants to know more about Findhorn or John's experience, please let me know. I can send you.
I have written up.
Yeah, he had written some article about his experience. So if you are interested in that, I can contact with him, and he will send you the interview. Okay. Okay. So let's close this interview. I'm so grateful. Thank you for the interview, John, and thank you for being my friend for a long time.
Thank you, Matai. The same reason.
Okay. So let's close it. Goodbye.
Goodbye.